Hey there, welcome back viewers, blade lovers, blade aficionados everywhere to OG Blade Reviews. Yep, better known as an old guy with knives. Or this old sword, a former name, still kind of applies. Just changed it back a year or so ago to OG Blade Reviews, and that's me. And what is in the mysterious pouch on my table today? Well, I got it from North Mountain Knives, but it is labeled as a Katsu knife, a Japanese company, I believe. However, these are not made in Japan. I believe they come from China. The workmanship is exquisite, as you've seen before in a few examples that I've shown of Tanto blades. Now this one, and they give you, I mean, this is nice presentation. Probably it's better than some of the small folder knife cases that we see, or pouches, whatever you want to call them. So what we have here on the table today is the Katsu, K-A-T-S-U, FB-04. Now I got it from North Mountain Blade. They label it, they don't label it a Katsu, but it is a Katsu. And North Mountain Blade is known to sell some overstock from a few other companies, if you are familiar with their website. Their website continues to be daunting for me in that their descriptions and their consistency and naming and giving us specs and measurements is kind of all over the place. It's sort of like freestyle, you know, whatever, when they put something up new, it takes on a whole new format. So I have, you know, reached out to Shane at North Mountain, very good guy to work with if you've ordered from them before. Quick to respond if you DM him through Instagram or leave him a text message, what have you. You know, very good guy to deal with. But saying they need some consistency. Well, I don't want to dwell on that. But what this ends up being is a Nemoto design. Now, this is considered to be a Tanto, which is simply a knife-sized blade, not a sword, with the design coming from ancient Japan, feudal Japan, perhaps, and a little later. So I looked it up, and really what it ends up being is what's called a Kissaki Moroha. Kissaki Moroha blade design. Now, while you gander at that for a bit, and we're going to go over it in detail in just a moment, what we're seeing here is, first of all, if I go out to marshallswords.com and look at their images here of all the different Tanto styles, and what we see here in both this one, Kissaki Otoshi, right, and this one, which is going to look very similar, right, is referred to as a Kissaki Moroha. All right, I'll look at my monitor here and make sure you've got that in frame, okay? So not all so-called Tantos have the chisel point Tanto shape that you're used to seeing. And even the chisel point, according to James Williams, wasn't ever really a Tanto. That was a it was a cold steel Lynn Thompson creation back in the early to mid 80s. And I was reviewing them for Inside Kung Fu magazine even back then, but in printed form. Anyway, get off the historical soapbox here and look at this beautiful SLD Magic blade. Fair amount of branding there. Sakura blade, Nemoto design. All right, so, you know, trying to make sense of all of the definitions. And there is the brand Katsu. So if you're thinking along with me that there is some very tight relationship between Katsu and North Mountain, yeah, you know, I'm thinking that. Because as I'll show you in a little bit, the other designs that were branded as North Mountain are very much in the same form factor, materials, and so on and so forth, with a titanium guard. This one happens to have a titanium pommel. It's a beautiful knife. Fuller down the middle. Just, I mean, the workmanship, the execution is exquisite. This is a sandblasted G10 that gives you a grippy G10. Not a heavy texture, but just a lighter surface texture. And it's one that brings out all the grain, if you want to call it that, in the G10. 2 screws here, so it's a slipped-on guard, slipped-on handle, slipped-on pommel. In fact, right about here, if you look really carefully, a little bit of a hiccup there, where we have one half of the pommel slightly forward of the other. Doesn't really bother me. You know, you got to really look at it to pick that out. It's not a custom knife. These are going for about, well, I'll leave you the links, but they're going for about $275, something like that. SLD Magic, I believe they're speccing this out to be like 61 HRC, 61, 62 HRC, I believe. So fairly hard material, and it is a Sanmai construction. You can see very easily there the Hamon line. Part of it's polished, part of it is bead blast. Kind of a smoky look to it, frosted kind of a look. But there is that very prominent design here with a swedge. Now that's not a sharpened edge. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But again, in the Kissaki Moroha design. And there are those of you out there that collect Japanese swords and other edged implements and know the nomenclature and what you're talking about more than me. So chime in. Feel free to chime in and let me know what you think about this. The handle is purported to be a traditional Japanese knife handle that has been somewhat modified, and I love it. 2-finger groove there, 2-finger there, but not confining. And with a guard, this is something that they created on their own. But just love it. Just love the look, love the feel. And it's about a 6-inch blade, slightly under. Why don't we, having mentioned that, let's measure it up. We got a fair amount to talk about here. So I want to make sure I don't spend all day doing it, which I typically do. 10.5 inches overall. And a blade of, you know, I've just got to call that 6 inches. They're saying that it's slightly less. I mean, if it's slightly less, it's like, you know, a 1/16 less or something like that. So I'm calling that a 6-inch blade. They may have measured it under 6 inches for legal purposes. Now, there is a bigger brother to this, like a short sword 9-inch or so blade, and I've got one of those coming. This is the smaller one. I figured they'd make a nice pair. Now, if we go to metric, which we must, because I've been admonished for not doing metric. So we've got like 26.5 centimeters, and we've got a blade of about 15.3 centimeters. Okay. Going to my other measurements. Pretty thick blade stock in millimeters. Almost a 6 millimeter, it is a 6 millimeter, just changed its mind. 6 millimeter blade stock, that's thick, folks, for a knife this length. And 16.8 millimeters across the handle. In inches, that gives us 0.23, almost a 1/4 inch. And 0.70 across the handle. .70. If it was a folding knife, you would say it was too thick. For this, it actually is nicely hand-filling, not overdoing it though. I'm going to roll around to grams, and in grams we have 238.52, and in ounces 8.41. So not particularly heavy for a fixed blade. The balance is right there on that demarcation line between the guard, you could call it a bolster if you wanted to, titanium, and the handle, right on that line. And that makes this, oh man, so beautifully balanced. Now its bigger brother is not going to be as well balanced. It will have a longer handle and a longer blade. Where that balance will end up, I'm not sure. But this is just so comfortable in the hand. There's your cross section. We have these rounded shoulders, but still kind of rectangular, squared off, nicely smoothed out, chamfered in this area more so than this area. I mean, the sculpting on these knives is just, artistic and perfect, I would say. So Nemoto design, Sakura Nemoto design. Now Nemoto would need to be a knife maker or knife designer. Let's bring out another one that's branded North Mountain. And this is the Bear Hunt, a Hiroshi Suzuki design, if I have that correct. Yes, Hiroshi Suzuki. This is fashioned after, obviously, if you know your Loveless designs, it's fashioned after and pays homage to the Loveless fighter. And Loveless, Bob Loveless, spent a good amount of time in Japan teaching the Japanese swordsmiths his style and methodology of blade design. So although we don't have a sharpened top edge on this, which I think Loveless did provide, it is sharpenable if you wanted to go that route. This also, with this well-defined swedge on top, is sharpenable if you wanted to. The reason I wouldn't do it is we've got a nice point here. I happen to like the thickness of that point, right? It's not fragile, it's not frail. If you sharpen the top edge, you're going to make that point thinner. Now, great if you do it and you just want to have kind of a, showpiece and demonstrate that you've got a top edge, that's fine. You could call this a dagger if it had a sharpened top edge. It is kind of a Japanese dagger in them paying homage to the Kissaki Moroha, which had a sharpened top edge as far as I know. A quick look at the sheath. It is a very nicely thick Kydex sheath. It fits, I'll bring that one back in a moment, perfectly. You could probably tighten it up a little bit if you wanted to. I mean, I'll do a little shake test here, and it wants to come out, but it didn't. I can back out a little bit. Yeah. We've got these double straps here. One is a Velcro. Okay. Yeah, it's Velcro, so it'll peel off. And these hold on the belt strap here, so you can hang it. And, you could loosen it up and raise that up and so on and so forth. They don't provide you with grommets. Nothing has a hole going all the way through. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to hook up a DCC clip or a tech lock or anything like that. Obviously, you could drill some holes and so forth. Other thing they did with the sheath is put either a thicker piece of Kydex in the center, not sure if you can see that, or some other material, maybe G10, I don't know, and then sandwich the Kydex around it. So this filler here is an additional piece of material. And I think the reason they did that is so that you can preserve your blade. Your blade is not rubbing on the sides there, and therefore no scratches. It's only held in by the guard area of the knife. So I like it for that fact. So once again, let's get them all turned in the same direction. There's the Suzuki Bear Hunt. One more that I really, really like that I received recently. This is a much larger knife, actually, more so than I realized. And this is what they're calling the new traditional chop, if I have that right. New chop Tanto, North Mountain. Crazy. It's a beauty. And that also has a swedge on the top. Many of you will say that the Tantos didn't have swedges, and you may certainly be right. The Kaikens that I see, the modern Kaikens, always seem to have a swedge on it. I don't know if maybe Lucas Burnley started that, if I have his first name correct. Anyway, this one's a gorgeous one, but you can see a lot of the same design notes here with the way that they did the guard and the way they sandblasted the G10. Look at that texture, beautiful. I mean, they're all just beautifully sculpted. Obviously CNC machined, but I believe I've heard somewhere that they're hand finished. But there is your more chisel pointed Tanto, and there is your, I have to look again, Kissaki Moroha designed Dagger. I'm going to call it a Dagger. And, you know, yeah, you would be right if you said if the top edge isn't sharpened, it's not a Dagger, so on and so forth. For compare, a much smaller knife, this is the Ecos Kaiken, which was a great find over at Tactical Elements. I highly recommend them for a lot of interesting one-off knives. This is made in the Philippines. This is more your traditional Kaiken or traditional Tanto. Once again, they do put kind of a swedge on the top for the full length. And oftentimes you'll see a V grind on the top of the Tantos and Kaikens. These are coming in just a little over $100. They're hand forged in the Philippines with a true hamon, a hardened, differentially hardened edge on them. Really cool. So how about that assemblage there? One of my favorites on the table, this guy, certainly. They do this one a little different. Notice they don't use the filler on that, if you want to call it a filler. And the Suzuki Bear Hunt, they give you a nice Kydex with a carbon fiber texture to the surface. Not real carbon fiber, obviously. And this is a beautifully wrapped handle. Not 100% traditional. It isn't the twisted wrap, but they do have the real ray skin underneath, and they have a Manuki underneath, which is the underlay, a dragon, and nicely done pommel on this. Just really nice knife for the money, and budgety, yet nicely done. We'll take another look around the FB-04, if I didn't mention that, Katsu, sold by North Mountain Blade, and very similar to other fixed blade North Mountain offerings. So again, I'm thinking the manufacturer, even on their branded stuff, is going to be Katsu. So SLD Magic, and there is the North Mountain logo that is actually looks like laser etched or ground in. Ground in. I like the minimal branding on this one. I'm not so sure on the Katsu that I like, all of this. But, it isn't that big, but it does give due respect to the designer. Well, let me know what you think of the FB-04 Katsu, paying homage to the traditional Japanese knife Kissaki Moroha. Right about now, look for my logo over here, and don't forget to click on that logo and subscribe if you haven't, and you'll be notified every time a new video drops if you have some interest in what I'm showing. For the meantime, be well, take care, stay safe.